First of all, I want to share my screen, and I want to explain what you should be looking at is the zoom.us website. So I am logged in to zoom.us, and I can get to my profile, I can get to my meetings, I can get to my settings, and there are some advanced settings here. After you get your account set up, you don't even come back to the web unless you need to do something advanced. So this is the software that I find it most easy to use for Zoom. I use it extensively. So if you do not have this software, we want to talk after the meeting. You can email online right now and say, I need the software, because we want to put this in your hands. So the first thing that I want to do today is walk through this software and show you the settings. So this is the home screen. You can see right at the top that you can join a meeting. So in this screenshot, I have clicked join a meeting. This allows you to type the ID of the meeting if you know the meeting. So this is more for committee work or other meetings that you're going to have. It's very easy when you know the 9 or 10 digit ID to just type this in. Notice also there's a drop down arrow. That saves your most recent meetings. So if you have a weekly meeting with your department or your colleagues, that allows you to get right back into that very quickly if you've got a recurring meeting set up. Also, back to the software, notice there's a meetings tab. I use home and I use meetings. I do not use the chat very often or the contacts, but someone at some point this week asked about, is there an easy way to IM with our colleagues? So you could try setting up a little group for yourselves and seeing if Zoom works for you. But I use the meetings. You can see all of the recurring meetings that you have. When you hover on top of them, you can start them or you can copy the link. So if you need to shoot an email to someone, you can do that very quickly when you're not in the meeting. Back to the home screen, there is the little wheel, the cog wheel, the daisy, I don't know what you call this, but it's the settings icon. And so when you click that, you get into all of the different settings. So we're just going to walk through the first few of these. Under general is where you could select to use dual monitors. I personally like the dual monitors because it allows me, and I think I've shown you what I see during a meeting. I can put my participants here, what I'm sharing, and my chat and my gallery, etc. I can split all of that out. However, that dual monitors setting is not live. You have to check it and then start a meeting. So you can play with that as you're being the host. Start a meeting with the dual monitors selected and start a meeting with it not selected and see which you like. It may be if you have 2 monitors in your office, you want it there, but if you only have 1 monitor while you're working remotely, then you may not want it. That's just something you all need to play with and figure out which works best for you in each situation. Video settings are next. Very clearly here, this came up on Tuesday. How do you go from 25 participants to 49 participants or 50 participants on one screen? It's this setting right here. Display up to 49 people in my gallery view on one page. So if 25 isn't sufficient for you, for your class, you can check that and go up to 49. I also do a video preview prior to joining a meeting, just to practice for myself. And you can see some of the other settings there. I also have checked to see the participant names. I believe that's a default, but if your names disappear, if your student names disappear from the gallery, that setting might need to be checked. Audio settings are next. You can get back to the audio settings while you are in a meeting, by clicking on your active menu and looking at the microphone where you mute yourself. There's a little up caret next to that. But you can test your speaker volume. You can test to ensure that your microphone is working. And then there are settings here about whether you mute when you come into the meeting, etc. Sharing the screen is next. Some things about how it's going to display for you. Again, these are my preferences. You may decide that something else works better for you. One thing I will mention, you might take a look at this side-by-side mode, especially if you are on a single monitor. You may like that setting. And another option before I forget it, when you're in the full Zoom US settings, there is a place that would allow you to allow multiple participants to share their screen at the same time. Normally, we just want to see one, but there could be some instances if you've had group work or if each student is getting ready to present and you want to quickly see their presentations prior to starting, you could select that. It might be valid for you, but you can have the option to have 2 or 4 or everyone sharing their monitor screen at the same time. All right, under chat, there are lots of settings here. I will take this opportunity. I believe as the admin for the Neosho Education Plan, I checked a box that I believe will automatically save your chat for everyone who has a Neosho Zoom account. I believe when your meeting is over, your chat should automatically save for you. You may have set that also on your own, but I think I turned that so that is the default. And we're going to talk, I have some more pictures later about where those files go and what you do with them afterwards. All right, and then we did not get to this fun one. I've had a lot of questions. I see many of you have figured this out, this virtual background. So while you are in a meeting, this is what I was talking about earlier with the microphone. This caret will take you to your audio settings and then your video settings, and this caret will allow you to choose your virtual background. So the virtual background can be just a fun thing, but it also has a purpose. Some of you may not want to see what is behind your students, or you may not want your students to see what is behind you. So this virtual background basically masks what's going on behind you during the meeting. Notice over here, you can add your own image. Dr. Rob took us to the Amazon the other day. She also has some other pictures. I think one is a cell that can display behind her. So depending on what you are lecturing on for the day, if you are lecturing on something and you want to use it in your background, by all means, you can add your own images here. One thing I forgot to say, we could talk briefly about a green screen. I don't have a green screen behind me, and I'm sure as I move around, you can see some movement. And sometimes we noticed it cut off my arm the other day because I was wearing 2 colors. The green screen helps with that. Green screens are a theater prop, basically, or a video prop. You can make one. If you have very low tech here, but if you have a green sheet or a green piece of fabric, you could put it on your wall and set your camera so you're right in front of the wall. Or if you have a means to display it on an easel or something, you can make a low tech green screen. I don't expect that any of us that are using the virtual background now have a green screen, but that is available to you. Okay, Sally, that is an excellent question. So I'm going to pick on you. Students can change their names, but you also as the host can change their name. So I'm going to quickly just rename Sally to Sally K. So if you can find Sally on your monitor in your gallery or your view, I just renamed her to Sally K. You can do that. So Sally, you can rename yourself. If you hover over the gallery, you'll get the 3 dots icon, and that's a shortcut menu. One of the options is to rename. But you also have that in your participants window under more. When you click on more, you can rename as well when you are the host. So depending on which is faster for you or your preference, you can do that.
So students can use those dots to rename themselves, is that right?
Just like you can right now. So right now you would have the same permissions that your students would have.
Okay, thanks.
Alan, do you want to talk about yours, what you're seeing there?
If you have the setting, and Marie, I don't know if you have it, as the host, you have the ability in one of the settings you can set it so that a student can just press the space bar.
Okay.
Unmute, mute.
So yes, that is a nice, sometimes a nice feature, but you need to realize that the Zoom software has to be active. Okay, so Rex, that's a great question. If something happens with a student and you have to remove them. So here is my participants menu that I have over in another pane where it's quick for me to get to, and I've clicked on more. When I hover over the 3 dots, removing and putting on hold. So there, I believe, is the answer to your question about how do you kick somebody out of the meeting. You can either put them on hold or you can remove them entirely from the meeting. And you have that option from your gallery with the 3 dots in the top right corner, or from your participants pane that's separate.
Marie,
Yes.
Will they be able to join the next meeting then?
They likely won't be able to get back into this instance of it, but next class they should be able to join. Recordings. So here's where I want to talk a little bit about recordings. I have selected to record the video during screen sharing. This morning I saw this option to optimize for third-party video editor. I have not tried to upload a Zoom file directly to YouTube, but I believe it will work for you. What you get out of your files, and we'll talk about where this is located, but you do get an MP4 file from your meeting. And I believe YouTube will take an MP4 file direct from Zoom. It's an MP4. If you want to edit, for example, when we did our My Neosho training the other day, if you attended that, you saw that I was sharing my student names from a live class. I can't put that on the internet. That would be a horrible violation of FERPA. So I'm going to need to take that recording and put it into Camtasia so that I can blur out some of that. If you need to do any editing of it for any reason, maybe there was a section you just don't want to go to the internet, you can pull this MP4 file into Camtasia and do your editing and then produce it like we talked about. But if after class is over, if it's ready to go, you can dump it into your YouTube channel, get the link, and put it on My Neosho. Just make sure that you get the MP4 file, because you'll notice, and it's Zoom_0 every single time for me. You also have the audio track. So if you want to share for some reason the audio track instead of the full video, you would have that option. And then you do get the chats there in just in the notepad, so you can have that. So the files, and here is where I believe I have this open. There is a setting where you select where you want to store the files. Mine simply right now are going to my documents, where if you're on a college computer, you're supposed to put them on your K drive. So just know that. Default, I believe, is to documents in a Zoom folder. Each meeting is in its own folder. So these at the top are the ones that we've been having since Monday. So you can see each of those is the same meeting ID, but when I go into them, it's a different file from that particular time. And yes, they are time date stamped. There is a setting, and I think we've already seen a picture right here. So even from the software, you can set where you want the files to locally record. So you can see my default is just to my folder, documents, and then in a Zoom folder, but you can change that. Also, some of you have noticed you have the option when you turn on recording, you can record to your computer or you can record to the cloud. So you can see that you have a limit on what you can put in the cloud. But that is an option for you if you want to use that. You could go in and manage that. I typically just record to my computer because then I have those MP4 files. I've not played a lot with recording to the web. When you're making your meetings, you do have the option to set that meeting up to record automatically. So that's something you might want to choose for your face-to-face class sessions. I know many of you have also gone a step further and asked about an office hours link so you can talk with any student from any class. You might not want that one to be recorded. It just depends on your particular situation. But you can control what meetings record automatically by editing a meeting or by setting that when you create the meeting. Polling. This is something Maggie asked me about, and quite honestly, I'd sort of forgotten about it, but I'm going to demonstrate a poll. So you should have, coming soon if you don't see it already, you should be able to answer a poll that is displaying for you.
Can you share the results with the class, or is that something that just only you see?
Yes, when you end the polling, you have the option to share the results. So hopefully you are now seeing the results that are being shared. So again, that's something as we're thinking about using Zoom with our students, that poll option might be very helpful for you. So you could go into your Zoom room and you could make your questions, and then for that next class, you would have them. So one thing I will say, you will also have them for your next class. So in between classes, you might want to go in and edit your questions and get rid of the old, if that makes sense. Okay, so additional settings on the web. I believe I've already mentioned that you can have multiple participants share their screen, but you also can set co-hosts. I don't know if this would be very applicable for you. I just want to mention it. So if you are in a situation where you are team teaching and one, so this might be very applicable for nurses. If one instructor is using their pro account to create the meeting and host it in My Neosho, you might wish to make the other instructors co-hosts, so that when they go in, they would have the ability to run the meeting. So I know in nursing, in particular, they do different instructors lecture on different topics. So that could be very helpful for you, and it might be applicable also. For example, in liberal arts, if you've asked Kevin to come to your class and give a guest lecture, perhaps you want to make Kevin a co-host so that he can run the meetings while you're, I mean, you would be there also. I'm just coming up with ideas. But the co-host can be given and taken away. So just know that that is an option. It just makes that other person have the ability to have all of the admin tools, etc., like you would have while you're hosting. And then we've also had lots of questions on the Zoom page, is that you just come into My Neosho and you click on the page. So you saw, this is my office hours, but your Zoom synchronous meetings page should look like this when it's fully configured. And you noticed that it popped up and asked if I wanted to join the meeting.
Marie, quick question on that. When students click that tab for the first time, will they be asked to download software, or should we send them a link to have the software downloaded before they go to that page?
I would strongly encourage you, once you decide what you're doing, to send your students an email. We will meet synchronously on Monday at 10 a.m. please go to this page between now and then and go into your class, go to the Zoom synchronous meetings page, and see if you can access the page. It should prompt you to download and install the software, and then after that, it should just ask you if you want to get in into the meeting. There is also a setting where they can check, don't ask me each time, and it just automatically takes them in.
Perfect. Thanks, Marie.
So for your students, this is definitely going to be, I believe, the fastest way for them to get to your Zoom meeting. For you, once you're used to using the software, you may decide that it's fastest for you to just come over to the software to your meetings tab and get back in to that meeting. You can start it from here. So you'll have to play for yourselves, but definitely for your students, going to My Neosho and clicking on the page should be the best. And also, if they get kicked out for any reason, they are well trained on how to go back in there by the time you've done this a couple times. Okay, I believe that was the last thing that I had planned to share. So let's just have some general discussion from you all about what your experiences have been like, or if you have specific questions over the week.
Hey, Marie, I got a question. So I set up a continuous meeting for my students that they could drop into. And so what I'm hearing from you today is that they can't actually be in that meeting unless I am present, right? Because I had originally thought that this might be a way for them to maybe do like a group study or interact or something like that. But I have to be there to host it.
Not necessarily. There is a setting in your meeting, and you can go in and check this. If you scroll down here under advanced option, you can enable a waiting room. That puts people into a holding spot that gives them a message, the host is not yet here. Perhaps you've seen that if you've attended other conferences, web conferences, or you can check this box to enable join before host.
Okay, so either one of those will work?
No, I would not use the enable waiting room. That is, it really is what happens if you don't put the enable before host. If you want your students to be able to get into this meeting and you know, meet, they could come in for a study group, or you could assign projects and they could schedule times to come in. You want to click the enable join before host.
Okay, I think I've got that set up like that, so I appreciate it.
For example, when I logged in today to start the meeting, there were already 4 or 5 of you here because I have that set on this in-service meetings. Also, if you're having students practice getting into the meeting, if you email them and say, make sure this works for you on the device you're going to use Monday at 10 when we meet, you want to go ahead and check that at least initially, so that they can get in and practice and make sure everything on their end is working. So there are, from Zoom, some resources available to you. There's lots of information here. So I just Googled Zoom resources, but the real address is zoom.us/resources. So they have lots of videos. They do have pretty good support. So there's also another website that is their support, and they have the getting started videos, and then they have lots of information that is more advanced. When you're at zoom.us, you can get to resources or you can get to support. So thank you for that reminder. Yes?
I have a question, and it's related to students sort of meeting on their own. Maybe this is silly, but do we have to be concerned about like legal liability for something that might happen when we're not there? Like maybe somebody says or does something inappropriate.
Well, let's ask the question, and maybe Dr. Rob wants to field this, but are we liable when 2 students go into our classroom before we're there and they might be having a conversation?
It depends. It's going to be dependent upon what happens and if it is reported and how we can respond to it. So if two students are by themselves in a virtual chat room like this one, and one of them says something offensive to the other one, the only way we're going to know that is if one of them reports that. So I think what's more important is the way that we respond to that, if indeed it does happen. So we can't protect an empty classroom in the same way that we can't protect always an empty virtual classroom as well. So it's really just more important how we respond to it when it is reported.
Okay.
Yes, I go back to when we were talking about the copying, recording, and then showing it later. Okay, when we record, do we have to go in and edit out all the people who said anything? Is that what you were saying, or just?
No, I was saying in the My Neo Show Q&A the other day, I went into a class and I shared my screen so everyone that was attending it saw the names of my students. I need to blur that out. And I believe there were grades on some of them. So I definitely need to blur that out before I share this training video to YouTube. In your case, we're encouraging you to upload those videos with unlisted. I believe that's the setting on YouTube, so that I can't just go to YouTube and go to Homer's channel and then find your videos. I have to be a member of your class where you have placed the link for me to access that video. Kevin, do you want to clarify anything on that? Did I get those set?
No, that's correct. You can't see an unlisted unless you have the link. So when you upload to YouTube, there's a way to just default to that configuration. There's public, there's private, there's unlisted, and they specifically picked unlisted for educators. You don't need a Zoom account or YouTube account to access the unlisted, but you do need a YouTube account to be able to see private. And since students may not have one, the unlisted option gets around that for them.
One thing I haven't talked about, there are reactions. You might be able to see the reactions across the bottom of your screen. Sarah is showing us a thumbs up. For me, it's the last item on the right, in the middle of my window at the bottom of my Zoom window. I have the share screen, the chat, the recording, the closed captions, the breakout rooms, and then I have reactions.
Does the whole class have the ability to see individuals' reactions? Like, if I, as a participant in this meeting, give you a reaction, do all of my fellow classmates also see that reaction, or just you?
So the answer is yes. However, you're going to probably have to walk your students through updating their software if they don't have that reactions button. I do not have anything else planned. I do think today we were able to get through all of the things that I wanted to share. Again, I apologize. On Tuesday, we just did not have enough time scheduled for that meeting to try to tell you everything we wanted to share with you. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. I appreciate again all the work that you guys are doing this week and coming to all of the training sessions, and hopefully they've been helpful for you. So I'll hang out and answer any more questions that might come up. Let me know if I can help you in any way, and Maggie also is here to help you.
Thank you for watching this training. If you have any questions, feel free to email online@neosho.edu.